All right, our next guests are Dan and Gary Kitchen. Come on up. Put these around for you.
Thank you.
Mike's good. All right, so do you guys want to go give me a quick overview of some of the things you guys have done? Because you've done a lot.
Gary, why don't you lead us out?
Dan and I have been in the game industry since the late 1970s. So we're old. That's it. So we started on the East Coast, joined Activision, which was a very tiny company at that point, in 1982, and started making Atari 2600 games.
Yeah, Gary is best known for a lot of them, including Donkey Kong 2600, Space Jockey, Keystone Capers, Pressure Cooker.
Right, and Dan has done many, many others after that.
Yeah, Crackpots and Kung Fu Master, Ghostbusters, a number of titles. And then we branched out in the last 40-some years to all of the gaming platforms you know of. And we've kind of touched each one. And currently we're back on the Atari 2600 making brand new games for that.
Which is pretty odd.
It's crazy how it goes full circle.
It is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we call that company, we started that company 4 years ago, and because no one else would dare to start a video game company based on a 50-year-old game platform, we call the company Audacity Games, because we're the only ones who had the audacity to do such a silly idea. But it's gone really well. The audience of players loves the fact that we've recreated the games of the 1980s. Not so much the games, but the feel of the products of the 1980s. Beautiful box, beautiful manual, great games on the 2600, patches for high score. When you post your high score, you can receive a patch in the mail. All the little elements that the people liked in the 1980s, we do it all. And our third partner, who isn't here today, is a guy you may not have, I don't know if you know his name, David Crane, founder of Activision, who did Pitfall and probably 40 other titles on the Atari. He's the third partner of Audacity Games. David's in Argentina, giving a keynote at another conference.
Absolutely awesome. So going way back, what made you guys get into video games originally? Did you have a passion for it? Did you kind of fall into it, or what happened?
Well, there was no passion for it because there were no video games.
That's a good point.
When we were growing up. I fortuitously, I was in art, an art major in college, and I happened to get offered, I was paying my own way through, I had no college money coming from the family, they didn't have that. So I had to get a job, and I got offered a part-time job in a little company that was doing engineering work. And it was only a 4-person company, and before you knew it, I got dragged in, even though I had no experience, I got dragged into doing engineering. Kind of learned on the fly. And we did a couple of toys. We did toy products that were electronic. This was the late 1970s. Did game called Wildfire, pinball machine that you held in your hand and played, and Bank Shot, another billiard game that you played. These are handheld electronic toys with microprocessors in them. And then Dan joined the company right behind me. He's a few years younger than me. And while we were thinking about electronic toys, the Atari came out. And I went to my boss, guy who owned the company, and said, you know, that Atari is really gonna kick the butt of the electronic game market, because people would rather play video games on TV than a little handheld thing. And he said, go back to your desk and do your work. Then 3 months later, he called a big company-wide meeting and said, I had an idea. We're gonna do games for the Atari, and Gary's gonna be in charge. I thought, you know, amazing how he came up with that. So I reverse engineered the Atari. I ripped it open, figured out how it worked, because we were the only people in the world who did Atari at that point were Atari and Activision, who had spun off Atari. So those were the only people who knew the platform. I figured it out. It took 6 months. Dan and I started writing games, and after that we've been doing Atari ever since. Well, video games ever since. Sorry, long-winded answer.
No, it's awesome. Thank you so much. So I was a Nintendo kid growing up. I had a secondhand Atari, but my age range peaked at Nintendo. That's like when I started really getting into games. And one of the games I actually owned was Bart versus Space Mutants.
Yeah, yes.
So could you guys kind of tell me a little bit about like how that game was made and like what is it like working with like a licensed franchise like that? Were they real strict? Were they real open? Like were there certain things you could or couldn't do? Did you have pretty much free range on anything?
We knew the founder of Acclaim, and he telephoned Gary and mentioned he had the rights to a new cartoon that was currently on the Tracy Ullman show, and we ended up watching it, and it was called The Simpsons. And lo and behold, he signed us up to make the first game. We had done other licensed games in our career, and we know how to work with licensors and make sure that you're following their style guides and you're being true to their characters and the backstories. We put a producer on the game that was an excellent chap who worked with Gary and went directly with Matt Groening in California, and Matt kind of oversaw a lot of the production being done.
We had a meeting. I had brought this guy over that I went to college with who was a scriptwriter who was working for Warner at the time and knew the television and film industry inside and out. And I called him up at his job. I said, I just got off the phone with a client. And, have you ever heard of this thing on the Tracy Ullman show? And he said, The Simpsons? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, that's going to be a big hit. And I said, you know anything about it? He goes, yeah, I know everything about it. I said, you want a job? He said, yeah. So I left Warner, came to me. We went out to California. We met with Matt Groening and James L. Brooks, who is one of the most important people in Hollywood. Academy Awards, Mary Tyler Moore's show, all these films. I mean, he's like one of the top 5 people there. And met with the two of them, spent hours talking about concepts and how we were going to be true to the property. Thank God my buddy Barry was there because he spoke their language. They really respected everything he knew. Matt was great, and we're off and running. And it was a really brutal production schedule because it's the old, I just got the license and Christmas is coming, which is a nightmare in the game industry.
So you have like 3.5, 4 months to do it. So we put a lot of people on and got it done.
That's awesome. Dan, you were a consultant for the movie Grandma's Boy. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what did they consult you on, I guess?
Yeah, I was working at a company in New Jersey, and I was being represented by CAA's interactive division. And my agent called me one day and said, hey, there's a new Happy Madison film coming out about a video game tester. I'm going to give them your name, and they're going to give you a call. So I got a call from Alan Covert, who was actually the star of the film, who worked with Adam Sandler, and he asked, hey, do you guys have any video games in progress that we can look at, that we can put into the film? And I said, yeah, I have one here called Demonic, which is kind of a cool thing. You're a demon and you're throwing fire. And they said, oh my God, that's great. When can you come out? So I brought the game with me, went out to LA, showed it to them. They thought it was a perfect match. Then they said, we need a couple of more games, can you write them? So we wrote Eternal Death Slayer 2 or 3, which was another game that was in the movie. And then I ended up going out there and they said, hey, do you know what a video game studio looks like? Can you help us set it up? And so I brought a lot of the things I had from a company in New Jersey and went out there and helped set direct what the inside of the lab looked like, what the cubicles would have in them for the testers and whatnot. And it was a wonderful experience, and it was just great fun working with those guys for about 6 months on the production.
Oh, that's really cool. Whatever happened? Demonic was canceled then? Is that what happened?
Demonic was eventually canceled. It was never actually completed. So the only version of it you see is currently in the film.
That's cool. So another NES game that I had as a kid, Boy and His Blob. Very unique game, even by today's standards, like with a little change in everything. I guess my first question is, was there ever anything besides jelly beans that would be considered to switch? Or was it...
No, the way that game came about is Absolute Entertainment was based in New Jersey, but David was based in California. So David worked in California, talked to me 28 times a day from California, and we worked very closely together from 3,000 miles apart. And he called me one day and he said, here, I just sent you a file, take a look at it. So I downloaded it and looked at it, and there was this ugly looking character standing there. I mean, he was all right, the kid, nothing special. And next to him was this little marshmallow looking guy, and he said, push the button. And he pushed the button, and the guy flinging this jelly bean in the air, it's flying. The guy eats it, and he goes, and becomes a ladder. And I just fell out of my chair. And oh my God, what a great idea. And he said, and the different flavors give you different characteristics and different objects you can turn into.
Yeah.
And we knew right away this was a very unique idea. And it was amazing. So I said, well, we've got to get done for Christmas. That means we have 6 weeks. So we took basically half the company. Dave flew out, stayed in an old rental about a quarter mile from our office, and walked there and back every day. He called it the flop house. I'm going back to the flop house. And we did the game in 6 weeks. I co-designed it with him. He and I shared the coding efforts and art development. And I think it's maybe his masterpiece in his career.
Yeah, it's awesome. Even today, it's still mind-blowing how it works. It's great.
And I knew it was special when we sent it to Nintendo to be approved. It was a Nintendo game, they had to approve it. Didn't hear from them for months. And then I got a call one day from Juana, who was my contact at Nintendo. She said, I just want to tell you that A Boy and His Blob is the favorite game in the entire Nintendo office here in Seattle. It's all anyone plays. So I was very impressed. She was very excited. I went to CES or E3 that year, had a meeting with Nintendo, and as I was leaving, she said, oh, Gary, don't leave. Somebody's here, wants to talk to you. I turned around and it was Shigeru Miyamoto, who had come in, and he said, I just wanted to tell you that A Boy and His Blob is my favorite Nintendo game. I thought that was
That's pretty good, eh?
I mean, getting props from him.
And I said,
pretty amazing.
excuse me, what is your name?
Unfortunately, Dave wasn't there to hear that.
Unfortunately, Dave wasn't
It would have been
there.
wonderful for him to hear.
Would he have been a little inflated had he heard that from Shigeru?
He would have loved that.
He would have been a little more inflated.
Well, you know, Dave's a very humble guy, right?
Yes.
So that was very exciting. It's a great product.
But it was a great product. We love it.
So
we love it.
being that you only had 6 weeks to make the whole game, was there anything that you wanted to maybe add that you couldn't, or something that you had to take away just to get it done, or was it just we're going to get it?
We didn't take anything away, but man, we could have used another 6 months. I mean, there's a lot of great things we could have done to it, but we got in everything we wanted. We took so many resources, put them all on it. The office was 24 hours a day, lit up all hours of the night. We had an office in a little town called Glen Rock, cute little Americana town, and the police driving by at 3 in the morning would look up on the second floor of this building and go, what the heck are they doing out
We used
there?
to have a cop who walked the beat in the middle of the night to check all the doors of the stores. He would come upstairs and check on us.
What are you guys
sit
doing
down,
up
play
here?
an arcade game for a few minutes. How's the game coming along? Okay, Officer Joe, and he would, go back on his rounds.
Very funny.
That's crazy. That's great story, you guys. You guys worked on a lot of stuff. Is there something that sticks out as something that you're most proud of, or you think turned out better than what you could have imagined it being?
Well, I think the best, honestly, and this isn't a sales pitch, best quality games we've ever done are the Audacity games. And it's very simple. There's a reason why. We're all pretty much near retirement. We're not doing this for money. And we're doing it just for the art of making games. We have no boss. We have nobody coming to me and going, it's got to be done in the next 2 weeks for Christmas. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. It's got bugs. Doesn't matter. Ship it. We work on those games as long as it takes until we all three play them and go, it's a masterpiece, and then we ship it. And that is something we've never had in 40 years in the business. The difference is so dramatic.
Sure, yeah, I mean, you can get out your best product without being under...
Yeah, I mean, the average time for those games is probably 3 years in development for each one.
How about you?
I would have to concur with Gary. The current work we're doing is probably the best, and I'm probably most proud of Casey's Gold that shipped in November of 2024. That was a 5-year, not full-time, but a 5-year development cycle, and I've squeezed everything in the game I had hoped, and that's probably the one I enjoyed writing the most, and I'm very happy the way it turned out.
All right. Of all the games you guys have done, which ports have been like the easiest and the hardest to do?
Which ports?
Yeah, which port?
Ports.
Yeah, I mean, taking away the whole time frame thing, but
Yeah.
like just like working on them.
Well, we all know what the hardest port I ever did was.
Yes.
That's right.
Donkey Kong on the Atari 2600. Atari 2600 was hardware designed to have two objects on the screen, like the two tanks in combat, two single color objects, and two little missiles that they shot at each other. That was it. And a very crude background, which could only be symmetrical. It could either be a reflection or it could be this repeat. It couldn't be different data on the left and on the right. And given that, when they came to me to do Donkey Kong, I had this one great thing going for me. I was young and stupid. And I said, I could do that. And ignorance is bliss, because if you knew how hard it was to do, I would have never done it. And I said, great, I'll do it. And I did it 3 months. And it was a brutal, brutal job. But I bled every last ounce of sweat out of that product that I could. And I think it turned out very well. And to this day, it is so controversial. And I laugh about it. People go, oh, I think it's junk. It was terrible. It wasn't like the arcade. Oh, so you're saying it wasn't like the $3,000 box that had a 16-bit microprocessor in it that I jammed into an 8-bit microprocessor in 4,000 bytes.
With 128 individual bytes of RAM.
It wasn't as good as that. Oh, I understand.
Sure.
What are you gonna do? Can't please everyone. I thought it turned out great.
Before I get to your answer, just to follow up quick with you, how was it working with Nintendo like back then? Like now, obviously they're super strict about their franchises and stuff. Did you have to come to them and be like, "This is what I'm working on," or "This is what I can do," or did you have to sell them anything?
Their deal was with Coleco.
Okay.
Coleco paid them an enormous amount of money for the rights to Donkey Kong, and Coleco really cared about the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong. The Atari one, they just happened to get all the rights, and since the Atari was the biggest machine, they were going to do an Atari one, but they were more focused on getting the ColecoVision one done. So, and I had no contact with Nintendo whatsoever. And I had no code, I had no graphics, I had nothing. All I had was they shipped me an arcade machine. I put it next to my desk, and I was off and running.
Wow.
Never talked to Nintendo until years later about it, because I ended up working very closely with Nintendo after that on the NES and a SNES and a bunch of other projects. But one day I was sitting in the office with the chairman of Nintendo, Howard, and Howard said to me, "Didn't you do the Atari version?"
Yes,
I said,
did.
"Yeah, I actually did." And he said, "That did really well for us." They made a lot of money off that.
Yes,
I mean,
they
it did $100 million in its first 3 months. So he was happy, everybody was happy, and I didn't deal with him until later on.
Right.
How about you?
I guess one of the toughest ports was Ghostbusters. I had a very limited amount of time to port the C64 version to the Atari 2600, and I'm very happy how it turned out. I also did one other port, Kung Fu Master, an arcade game. I loved playing the NES version, so I had the NES version on my desk as I wrote the 2600 version. So you'll notice the graphics, the color palettes, they're very similar. And I think I squeezed that game very well into the 2600. I wrote the game, but Gary helped me by doing all of the big character animations of kicking and jumping and punching. And so we worked together and got that out. That was a difficult port technically. Ghostbusters was a difficult port because of the schedule.
And you find a lot of people online say that they prefer the Atari 2600 version of Kung Fu Master to the NES version. They prefer the Atari version to the NES version, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yep.
So when I was doing research for you guys, I stumbled across that, you have to forgive me, I don't remember which one of you it was, does a lot of work with like copyright infringement stuff.
Yeah, I do.
What exactly does that entail?
Well, I never had planned to do this side of my career, but I got a call from Nintendo in 1989 maybe, when they had come out with the NES, and they were in a big battle with Atari, who had the 7800 out, and Atari claimed that Nintendo's agreement that they made all the developers sign, the agreement said if you do 5 games for us, you can't do those games on any other platform. So they have to be exclusive to our platform. And Atari sued them for monopolistic practices. And Nintendo called me and asked me to help them. And what they wanted me to do was testify at trial as to, look, you're a developer, you work with Atari, you work with Nintendo, is this keep you from doing something on the 7800? And obviously the answer was no, we had done them both. So I helped them, and once I did that, I became known in the industry as an expert witness because I had trial experience. And since then I've done 50 or 100 cases on things involving patents, copyrights. Like, I'll give you a copyright example. If you think of 2 games, have no relation to each other whatsoever, Guitar Hero and Rock Band, right? Completely different. Had look anything like each other. Well, Rock Band was done by the people who did Guitar Hero after they parted ways with Activision, and they sued each other for copyright of the game design, and I was involved in that case. So cases like that.
How do you prove that they're different games then?
Well, there's I'm not a lawyer, but there's law about it. And essentially what it is you can't protect the idea of a game. I can't sue somebody because they copied Pac-Man. As long as the creativity of the expression of the idea, as long as they present it in a completely different way, then you're okay. I mean, and I can't stop them, and nobody can stop them. But if you do a game and you end up, it looks a lot like the other game, and it has similar color palette and similar characters.
The maze is the same.
The design of the maze is the same. The sounds are the same. Then you've stepped over the line. You have copied the creative expression. You can't copy the functionality, but you can copy the functionality, but you can't copy the creative expression, and that's. So that most of what I do, I'm trying to get out of that. It's hard work, and I want to make games, but I keep getting phone calls. I've done like 6 projects for Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and it's hard to say no when these guys call. Oh, we really need you to do this, but I'm trying not to do it. But most of the ones I'm doing now are mobile games, where Company A and Company B happen to have a game that look a hell of a lot like each other.
Sure.
It's. And people just shouldn't do that.
Do you see it happening more and more with like the ease of being able to make games? Like with, back then, like it was a lot harder to make a game, but do you see more cases now with newer and mobile games and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many games on the App Store, on Google and the Apple App Store that it's inevitable. And a lot, honestly, a vast majority of them don't ever get litigated. I mean, we've developed 20 or 30 iPhone games. And I know that the most original game I could possibly do on the iPhone, I put it up. In 2 weeks, there are 6 clones. And there's nothing you can do. I mean, if they're small companies and they're not getting any traction, why bother? But if they are big companies, you go after them. I'm forgetting one thing. The number 1 place I'm getting calls on now is Roblox.
Yeah, that would make sense.
One person does a game on Roblox, 100 people do the same game. And you would think Roblox, why? Well, because you have no idea how much money 19-year-old developers are making doing Roblox games. You think, big deal. Do a couple of Roblox games. I had this first developer call me, he goes, I have this game and someone copied it exactly. I looked, I said, yeah, it's the exact copy. And he said, well, I need you to analyze it. Well, is it worth going after? Well, the game is currently doing 100,000 a day. Doing 100,000 yen? No, $100,000 a day. $500,000 a day. Yeah, I think it's worth going after.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So Roblox is a fertile ground for that because there's so much money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Do you think after you retire, you're still going to be getting calls from these companies asking your opinion on
Oh
things?
yeah. I still get calls. I've turned down probably 3 cases in the last month because I'm trying to retire, and my only work I want to do is Audacity. I mean, people ask me, well, Gary, you worked on Circus Convoy, which came out in 2001. Why is it Dan
2021.
has games out and Dave has games out and you don't have a game out since then? The answer is I have too many expert witness clients. But I'm trying to clear the deck so I can do games. I want to do games. I don't want to. A little tired of the expert witness game. I'm going to Singapore in 2 weeks to testify in Singapore in a litigation case. And I'm trying to make that my last major project.
All right. Going back to the ports, you guys did a port of Super Battle Tank, correct?
Gary
Well, we
wrote
created
Super Battle.
Super Battle Tank.
Yeah, we made it. I'm
created
sorry.
it,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. What was the process with that? Were you being like consulted by the military, or did you just go off and do your own thing?
No, we did our own thing. Dan and I have always had a interest in military hardware. He does a lot of flying games. I've tended to do tank games. So there's a lot of public domain information, and we really like the M1A1 battle tank. So that's what drove me to do Battle Tank on the NES, and then Super Battle Tank, and then Super Battle Tank 2. A quick word on Super Battle Tank. People don't know this story, but it's had 2 ancillary usages outside of just being a SNES game, Super Nintendo game. First is a movie called Toys, which probably no one in this entire building saw, but it was a Barry Levinson movie and it starred Robin Williams. And it was about a guy who worked in a toy factory, and he had an uncle who was a military general, who wanted to take over the toy factory and use the technology to start wars. Well, there's a scene in that movie where he goes into an arcade, and to show what a crazy guy he is and all the wars he wants to start, he plays an arcade game where he's driving a tank, and he starts shooting at UN trucks that have the Red Cross sign, and he's going, "God damn UN, what are you doing in the middle of the war?" And he's blowing up the UN trucks. Well, we made that game out of Super Battle Tank. They came to us and we turned Super Battle Tank into the game that they could show in the movie. So we made a custom version of it. Second one was U2 called me, and it turned out that The Edge, one of the U2 band members, was addicted to Super Battle Tank, and they wanted to use it in their Zoo TV tour. So in the Zoo TV tour, you know how sometimes they darken the room, put up a giant projected screen? Well, they had a projected screen of him playing Super Battle Tank. Little tiny guy playing, big giant screen, dramatic music, because it was like an anti-war stance for them, and they used Super Battle Tank talking about the VR reality of it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you.
Great.
Wonderful talking to you.
Let's hear it for Dan and Gary Kitchen, everybody.
Thank you so much.
guys. If you have any questions, we'll be around. And come visit us at our booth. We're way in the front of the room. I'll turn it off.